Yo, what is good in the hood? I figured we'd make a tier list video today because the SpongeBob patch, funny enough, is one of the most influential ones I think we've had ever in a very long time. With all that in mind, we're gonna start from the bottom. We're just gonna go to the top, and all the reasons I've been discussing with like every top player you could possibly think of. Just know that all the opinions that you see here were not just like done by my own merit. They're done by a couple other people who couldn't agree with it. Like, we just had to agree to disagree. Point is, this is the tier list right now. So let's start with Lance, right? Lance got a tremendous, and I'm not gonna lie, like an extremely heartbreaking nerf. Like, this is insanity. Okay, now let's just explain what BMG saw. So what they wanted was to basically remove any of the combos that came out of Nair that were unjumpable, they confirmed into something, or they just had like this really tight dodge window. And to me, Lance was never really that good to begin with. So going this route just kind of digs it even further in the dirt. I'm just not a big fan. So mix that in with some of the matchups. I feel like it loses to just about everything that's here on this tier list right now. And then off stage, like, don't even get me started. Every weapon beats it right there. I can't be bothered. Like, I don't know. I just think it's really lackluster, and I don't really think it's the greatest weapon. So it goes in B+, and I declare it as the worst weapon in Brawlhalla. Now, Gauntlets, dude. The Gauntlets Nair got gashed. Actually gashed. If you Nair now, some of the confirms into Sair are actually much harder to get in. Plus, if you try to string into Nair, then bro, this you can fast fall easily if you're at 6 frames. Like, this stuff is basically not confirmed. Again, I don't consider Gauntlets to be good anyway, so this is again another really questionable just gashing of some kind. Like, the weapon doesn't deserve to be so bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, they could just lower the damage input, or the damage output, I mean. They could just lower something, but like, stun? Like, you're not really supposed to go in that direction. It just makes the weapon a lot more lackluster. I really think it doesn't perform as well as it used to. And it's not like, I really just thought of Gauntlets as more like a comfort weapon than a good weapon, or like a top weapon. You know what I'm saying? With it all in mind though, that puts Gauntlets in the position that it's at. Now A- is Blasters. This one's really controversial actually. I can't really tell where exactly to put it. The dead zones are just, they're very hard to work with, but the damage output is like back. So like the Nair combos are back, which is really convenient, and I think it's a good step, like a step in the right direction. I believe that we're in a position where Blasters can start easing into the meta, but it's really hard to tell. I just don't really see a position where Blasters comfortably moves into these weapons. Yes, it might have some dominating matchups of some kind, but it's something that I have yet to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, the skill expression on the weapon has completely disappeared since. So with it in mind, it'll be at A- because I do have faith that it will be better. But into all of these weapons, I feel like it gets really closed in on, and recovering against those weapons is already pretty hard, considering that you don't really out prioritize any of these commitment options by any of the weapons, unless you use the last blast of recovery. That would be just about it. Yes, Nair is uncontestable, but it's actually something that you can anticipate and punish, at least to me. So with it in mind, it'll be A-. Now, Greatsword, tournament winning weapon, still one of the okay weapons. I really am not a fan. It's just a okay weapon, but it did get buffed, which is a really big deal, because now I'm starting to think it might actually be A+. Because it's starting to fix up the issues, but it's like after BTX, when Hughes just became like God himself, God reincarnate. The grounded kit is nuts. It's always been really good. The aerials are also really complete, and Nair hits so far back. It almost looks unfair. But the only reason why I let it pass is because it kind of needs it until there's consistency in the combos. But while they're fixing that up, Greatsword's in a position to be not really back, but like it's just on par with the rest of the top weapons. But until I see this in full exercise, I can't really tell. Like the potential of the weapon though is almost great, because recovering is like really neutral. Like if you're in disadvantage with Greatsword, it feels worse than just about a lot of other weapons in the game. But nothing will ever feel as bad as being in disadvantage with like blasters or gauntlets. I'm not gonna lie, like it's impossible to land. But with Greatsword, it is a little bit doable because there is like it's just the father of all aerials to me, anyways. Because like you just see them do it all the time. Like they don't, like Greatsword players don't even use the ground anymore. They just go in the air, waste like 3-4 jumps. Use a dare, a stare, a recovery, a rising recovery that they fade away from, and it's really obnoxious, and it's actually really good. So, if anything, Greatsword has a fighting chance compared to the rest of the weapons that we see here. So it'll be A-. I hate the disjoints on this weapon. I hate them. Like actually, like D-Light in specific, I can't explain how many different times I've been stuck in a position where it's like the weapon is like it just has hitboxes that almost feel outdated to fight against. Now, the only reason why I'm really in line with this weapon, like being A-, is because it is deeply inconsistent. I find myself having a really easy time against the weapon. I don't find it too hard. Sair, as good of an interaction as it is, it's also one of the furthest reaching Sairs in the game, which also makes it punishable, if anything, but less punishable than Lance Sair, because Lance Sair has received multiple different nerfs. But Canon, it's not completely built on Sair, but Lance practically is, so that's where they started putting their focus. The Grounded Kid is really good, but again, like reading into a actual 0 to death is a little tricky. A weapon with a 0 to death cannot be the worst weapon in the game. That's just the reality of it. How is it that you can catch you can hit an M light, which is obviously not hard to hit. You can hit like the most disjointed D light in the game into dare as a true combo, right? And then if you catch a dodge, catch the landing, you can go for silent to recovery, and it might actually kill. Like, can we consider that? That is not the position that a bad weapon is in. Sorry, not sorry. So with it all in mind, Cannon will be A-. Hammer is so controversial. I can't really understand where we're at with the weapon right now. Like honestly, it's a really good weapon now. I will agree with that. It's back in a state where it's like everything that the people have asked for, BMG is answered with. Like now we have like sufficient recovery on D-Lights. The game plan is starting to make more sense thanks to Kaina. And some of the characters that follow through with it are really good. So right now, Cassidy and Taros are definitely on the map, especially Cassidy. A lot of potential with that character. And Yumiko just won a local against Yu's. I think it was in a 3-1 fashion, and Yu's was like completely frustrated, and for good reason, because people are starting to find ways to make Hammer work, and it can no longer be one of the worst weapons in the game. That's just the truth. The Grounded Kid is interesting. It's really situational, but it's really good at what it does and what it does cover. Now, I do think that Sidelight needs to be more consistent, and I think it needs to be reworked to be more consistent, because there are some issues where like if you hit it late, then it transitions into this, and like you have to like really like calculate and everything. It's not supposed to be done on a heavy weapon. You're not really supposed to have that issue, you know what I'm saying? So I think Sidelight does need to be reworked, but it has to have the same like 50-50 style that it did when you do hit Sidelight correctly, which is dash D-Light or dash jump Sair. So with it in mind, until like a few issues can be fixed, I still think it's A+. Spear. I lost way more than I thought. Sidelight Sair being lost is a huge deal. And dash jump Nair as well. And Sidelight Nair is, it's actually very iffy to nail now. Kaya's Sidelight Unsig on Spear is also more inconsistent, and it's also no longer a jumpable string, or it's no longer an unjumpable string. So, what does this make Spear? It's not that it's bad. Like, I'll say that much. I still think it's the perfect neutral weapon because it covers every angle. That's the whole point of it. Now, the only thing that you're not supposed to do is miss. And Spear makes that very hard to do. You know what I'm saying? It covers a lot of good angles, but a lot has been lost. That's the truth about it. Like, a lot did get lost, which what made it like almost like a top 5, top 3 weapon. It just, those reasons are gone now. Like, we're not really in a position where Spear can be a top weapon anymore. So, I mean, okay, well, yes, we are in a position where it can be a top weapon, but a lot was lost, and I can't really tell what position we're in. But all I know is that through losing a lot of damage and a lot of damage potential, we put Spear in a position where it's almost like a normal static / heavy weapon, where it's like, if you're gonna catch a dodge, the most you're gonna get is side light, double D light stare. That will be the most. And you can't even exaggerate that either. Maybe into Nair. But other than that, like confirms, like the short confirms, like you can't do them anymore. Spear is it's not in a bad position, but it's definitely lost a lot more than anticipated. So with it in mind, compared to the other weapons, it'll be A+. Katars. Strangely out of relevance. I'm surprised, and I'm actually really thankful because I don't really like Katars anyway. I just am surprised it's been people just decided to get off it and go to like trendier weapons, like the ones that I just put above. We're in a position where it's starting to look a little more towards the S side anyways. Like, we're starting to build into some of the static weapons that haven't been touched in a while, which is why Axe is still in relevance. If anything, it's why it's in relevance now. It's because people just pick up the next weapon and people might say he's bad. Like, what can I say, bro? Like this happens all of the time. It's not fair, man. But what's the point? The grounded kit is amazing. Like, I think Sidelight is one of the most invasive moves in Brawlhalla for sure. Like, top 3 at least. Nair is just complete. The only thing it does now is like, okay, the disadvantage is a little iffy. I still think it's complete, but that would be complete bias on my end. I spike Katars enough to where I could just, I'm just like, okay, let me just give it a fighting chance. Cause like, remember, it does have a static recovery, which means that it has a good chance of being punished. Right? Like, if you hit recovery, you can't drift anywhere. You're stuck, if anything. So, weird position. And the thing is, like, the recovery frames on it have also been increased, so it's actually pretty punishable, if anything. It's in a position where it's like, it's not bad, but like, it just got worse while the other top 5 weapons went up or untouched. So now we're here. With it in mind, it'll be A+. Axe, man. Ever since 2018, when I first picked up the game, I absolutely hated Axe. I hate Axe. You know why? Because the flowchart was so complete back then. Like, I could not stand how complete it was, and how it would be like any angle that I was constantly hit by, it would just constantly like get at me. It was a very invasive heavy weapon, which didn't make sense to me at the time, or it still doesn't, to be honest. But thank God I have like bow. I play bow into Axe. Like, come on, is that not free? Now, what am I getting at? The aerials on Axe are like, to me, they're iffy compared to like the grounded kit. The grounded kit is really nice, and D-Light is really, really good. Now, the only reason why it's A and not S is because its advantages are, I'm like still very confused on, very conflicted on, because it's like the same thing as Hammer, where it only feels like certain legends are getting the most out of Axe and Hammer. Let's consider this. Taros is only really good because you can count your moves. You count to 10, you count your hits to 10, and by the time you reach 10 moves, they're dead. Or they're in killing like percentage, which is only really possible on Taros. It just doesn't. It's just not complete to me how it could only apply to Taros, and not really any other weapon in the game. Or sorry, not any other weapon, any other legend. So I'm conflicted, but I mean, even with legends out of the question, Axe is one of the most complete heavy weapons that you can play right now. Specifically because of the 45-degree angle. But with its completion though, it still has a really rough disadvantage. Like if you can juggle the weapon in the air properly, if you can just bully the enemy through commitments, which is so possible, it's just like Axe does have its struggles, and I feel like it just needs a little bit more development before people start calling it one of the top 3 weapons. With that in mind, I think it's A+. Now, we're in the top 5 position. Top 5 is honestly interchangeable. I can't tell like where these weapons are at concretely right now, but it's not that weapons got better. Weapons just got worse, which is why they're in this position. They either got worse or they got unchanged. Whoever survived the wave is at the top 5, essentially. Except for Scythe. And I'll explain this one. Scythe. This weapon is really solid. It is so complete in terms of juggling. The strings, like, they don't end. All the moves flow into each other. And it's insane that it's even in this position in the first place. Not only that, it just got a recent true combo, which I'll just show right now. Like, they reduced the force, but they kept the stun. So now you have grounded dare, which is insanity to me. So what you have to do, of course, is when you land a dare, like, just make sure to hold down side, because if you hold full side, then you just stop a little bit, and then you can't do the true combo. But it's besides the point. That being a combo is interesting, especially for a weapon like Scythe. It also works at about 140. It's a little bit more niche, but you have to dash into it. And it almost kills from half stage, at least for Small Brawlhaven. And situationally, it can actually kill. It does right there. So I think with that in mind, I think Scythe is in a much better, or in a much more grounded play position. Now, it's not like Scythe respectfully needed D-like ground pound, or dare ground pound in the first place. Now it's situational, and it puts it below all of these weapons because, like, we don't have these extensions. Like, these extensions don't exist on the other top 5 weapons. Like, it's not that, like, the weapon got worse, but it's just not as bad as every other weapon that we see here. So, with it in mind, there is no S plus anymore. There is no S plus plus. There is no S plus anymore. There aren't really any significant there's no significant changes or no significant like positives on any weapon that just outweigh the rest of them. It just doesn't exist. So with it in mind, Scythe will be top 5, and not for the reasons that people may think. Man, I know this one is extremely controversial. I know it, and the reason why this has to do with the idea that it really did survive the wave. It's just the same way as it was with Axe and Bow. Everything just went untouched. And not only that, considering the new move changes, the new map pools, Sword has always been really good on platform maps. Like, to me, Sword is in a good position to become one of the best weapons in the game. Absolutely. Nair is in a good position. The juggling is it's actually pretty laid out. It's almost on par with both, if anything, because the Nairs just like send away, it transitions into a recovery, and the recovery like literally strings like immediately into Nair, like flawlessly. Like, for Bow, it just covers more angles, but Sword's juggling is more concentrated in a good way. It's a weird thing to talk about. It's new, but it's a playstyle that I've been seeing so much more recently. People have been picking up Sword more. The grounded kit is already amazing. The aerials, like, don't even get me started, man. I cannot stand the aerials for the life of me. And D-Light is really convenient. Like, everything about the weapon is like it's just really solid. Like, there's nothing wrong that can go with it. Like it's actually unstoppable. Like there's no position where sword has ever been the worst weapon in the game. But with it in mind, I believe it is better than Scythe in this case. It has really good ways to recover. A driftable recovery is actually extremely important, especially considering like what it's barring up against, like all of these other weapons with driftable recoveries. It's just not the same as sword. If anything, it has the best one right now. So with it in mind, it'll be top 4. Although it is interchangeable. Same goes for Scythe and the other weapon on here. Bow is in the same position as Orb, where it's like the weapon is in a really good position to be one of the top weapons of Brawlhalla, or one of the best, what have you. But nobody wants to pick up the weapon. Like I'm so appalled. Like there's no way that people just pick up the weapon, and I can't really tell why when people talk about it so much. Respectfully, there's only like 1 or 2 bow players for every region, and then we just look at it for gauntlets, and it's like, okay, it's more of a comfort issue, which is why, or it's more of a comfort thing, which is why I really didn't agree with those gauntlet nerfs. Anyway, now the grounded kit on bow is really nice. It just kind of survived the wave of nerfs, so it just puts itself formally like more and more above the rest of these weapons. It does certain jobs better. Stage control was the biggest one. It has enough range to kind of just work with it. Now, disadvantage, although it is pretty bad with the static recovery, like it's a small price to pay. You know what I'm saying? Like you have really good angles. Sarah is one of the most convenient aerials in the game. In the game, right? As if Qatar Nair doesn't exist, or Orb Sarah. Now I think Bow Nair, or just Bow in general, has aerials that are really solid. Like they're very solid all around. Very good. They also string into juggles. It's really complete in a way. Now the only thing that people have to do is learn it, but of course it's never gonna happen because people are just too comfortable on these other weapons. Scythe and gauntlets and katars are just so much easier, and in a way also axe and sword. So people are just favoring consistency more in this case. Even though there's a few top players who do play bow, I do believe that it is in a very good position. Like I believe it can manage its matchups against all of these weapons perfectly. And with Sarah being such a convenient punish, I think it is really just a small price to pay. Even though it is really hard to recover, it's kind of hard getting your stage back. It is one of the weapons that can actually make up for it very well. So I believe that bow is definitely in a top 3 spot. I wasn't initially thinking about Orb being this high up on the tier list, but it doesn't really show any signs of weakness at the moment, because we did fix the killing issue just now. With the recovery buff in mind, consider what we're doing here. We're buffing recovery. Let's say I hit a full string. I hit sidelight nair rising recovery on Orb. One of the bread and butters that kills out 140 against Kaya on Apocalypse now. I'll prove it right now, actually.
I can't find APOG, dude.
Bro,
oh my god, I can't find it!
As long as you hit the bag version of the recovery, it will be killing. Remember, Orb is kind of perfect in a way where it's like it's just a weapon that covers all the angles. The only problem it really does have as all the other perfect angle weapons do is killing. And Orb fixed that. Orb is now fixed and relieved from that issue. So what does that mean? It means that Orb is back kind of like where it was initially. We just put it in a position where it's more juggle heavy, and the next thing we're gonna do is buff the recovery. It's not necessarily bad, but understand what you're doing with that. We just made Orb way better, and we kind of put it back to its former glory, if anything. So, the grounded kit, pretty self-explanatory, really convenient. All the aerials, really baity, and 2 of them string into each other off of sidelight, which is the most convenient grounded move we've got there. We're now in a position where Orb can become a top weapon again. Now, okay, well, it's honestly always been up there, but Now it's really solidly up there. So with that in mind, we're just top 2. Boots. I did not want to do this. I really didn't want to even put boots up here because I felt like the BCX like tournament like thing is gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's gonna reel all the golds in. They're gonna be like, oh, boots aren't even that good, dude. Come here for a second. These weapons are not really supposed to have true combos. A string weapon, bro, come on, like be so real. A string weapon having true combos is one thing, but battle boots having dash D-Light go so far and transition into so many things is why it's definitely one of the weapons that has the most potential and is already shown to be a top weapon. Let me just show you one of the main flow charts for boots. You hit end light, right? Like this hitbox already is extremely convenient, but okay, that's gonna be the reality for all string weapons. Okay, you go into 50-50. You either go for the D-Light or you go for the Sarah here. Okay, not the worst. You go into AI Sarah. Now, you have two options. You either go for a Rising Sarah again, or you go for the GC D-Lights. You don't have a lot to work with. At least not with boots. Especially if they catch your dodge, that is all confirmed. These routes, like, it's just the former glory of Scythe. It's not a bad thing. Like, I really don't think it's like the most unhealthy thing in the game. It's that the weapon is having true combos as a result. It's having, you can turn around the nair through a weapon. It just doesn't really click. And for twos, that is first of all insane. Second, that is another representation of what's basically active input for a weapon that does not need it. A weapon that doesn't really need it without a dodge window. That is not supposed to be happening, and that is extremely unhealthy for the game because this is completely unexercised. Like, this has potential to be something more, and like consider what's happening. Like we're in a position where it can be way more destructive, like now. The main thing that CWK also didn't see was that D-Light Dare is another real string that can be AI'd. The aerials are really good. The grounded attacks are extremely invasive, and those said grounded attacks true combo or string fully into something without any additional reads. And you're telling me that the cherry on top is that they have true combos off of D-Light that can actually kill? Whoa, like something is not right about this weapon. And it's really apparent at that because a 7 defense character dying at 150. The dash D-Light that hit from this far. Like understand what you're entertaining. Like really. You can make this argument for any weapon. Okay. Like let's assume, okay, bow, yeah, okay, of course it touches here, but does it kill here? No, it kills at about 190 or 210 on this map. So tell me why Boots has that privilege. To me, it's like all sorts of wrong. So enough ramble about the weapon. I think it has the most potential, and it's already shown to be like the top weapon, but it's completely underdeveloped still because there is only one Boots player currently. Two, rather, Sandstorm and Rage. So, what am I getting at? There's a lot that hasn't been done on the weapon yet it's still like top 4. There's too much that hasn't been covered that will make me think that it is an okay weapon. That it's just whatever and we can just shrug it off. That's not happening. I believe it's the best weapon in Brawlhalla.